All right. Well, thank you everybody for your time today. I really appreciate it. My name is Ryan Miller. I am a solutions consultant here at Turnitin. And today we're going to be covering Turnitin's Similarity. So our agenda today is we're going to cover that Turnitin Similarity in your assignments. We're going to walk through assignment creation live in your Canvas instances, in your environment. We're going to show how to access that similarity port, and we're going to walk through that similarity port in detail. We're going to walk through submitting as a student, and then also how a student accesses their similarity port and where they can do that. So we're going to cover all that. This will probably take about 30 to 45 minutes. If we have a lot of questions, obviously it could take longer. But again, I will be recording this. I'll be following up with my contact that will then be able to share that with everybody. Okay, so what I'm going to do now then is I'm going to go ahead and go live into my Los Rios Canvas account. So this should look familiar to everybody. And I'm inside my assignments tab. And all we need to do to get started to create an assignment is to click this Add Assignment button here. And I'm sure this is very familiar to all of you. Obviously, you're going to go in and give it a name. You're going to add your descriptions, obviously just like you would normally for any other assignment. Choose your point value. You can choose your assignment groups, how you want your grade displayed as. Nothing changes there. The important part for being able to use Turnitin Similarity is this part right here under submission type. And you're going to want to make sure that you have online chosen. If that's not your default already, you're going to want to choose online. And you'll notice when we choose online, when we check text entry or file upload or both, a new box is going to appear down here called Plagiarism Review. So if I hit text entry, there's Plagiarism Review. If I uncheck it, it disappears. So a lot of people will come to this part and think, where is that box? Remember, you have to check text entry or file upload or both. And now you have this Plagiarism Review tab. VeriCite is still here. It will not be here forever. You do not need to use this going forward. So you'll leave that unchecked. You do have the ability to restrict upload file types if you want to. So they can only submit certain file types that Turnitin can check for similarity. And those are basically any file types that contain text. So, your Office products, your Word, your Excel, your PowerPoint, even PDFs, as long as they're not image PDFs, as long as it have text, typically it can be turned in to Turnitin to check for similarity. You can choose your submission attempts, unlimited or limited. This Plagiarism Review box, this is where you'll turn this assignment into a Turnitin assignment. So when you've checked those boxes up there under submission type for online, under Plagiarism Review, you'll check this drop down and you'll hit Turnitin. And when you do that, you're just going to get a few more options here. Your first options are exclude from similarity ports, bibliography, or quotes. What this is it allows you to exclude bibliographic material. So any words that follow the word references or works cited or bibliography, any content that follows those words will not be checked for similarity. That will help keep student scores down. Likewise, if I was to exclude quotes, it's not going to check any content that falls within quotation marks. Now, these are assignment level options. So if I was to check these, it would affect every student's submission. Keep in mind, inside the similarity port, which we're going to show here very soon, you can choose these exclusions on a paper-by-paper basis. So if you're ever just curious, what would my student's score be if I didn't check their bibliography or quotes? Then what would their matching be? You can do this at the paper level, or you can choose it at the assignment level here.
If you exclude them initially, can you add them back in the report?
Yes, you would be able to do that.
Perfect, thank you.
Submission indexing. So this is where you're telling the system whether or not you want your students' papers to be added to your institutional repository, to be checked against down the road. So if I choose to index all submissions, every one of my students who submit will receive a similarity port, but their paper will also be held in your institutional repository so that future submissions can be checked against your student submissions. If you uncheck this box, students will still submit the same way. They will still receive the same similarity port, but their papers will not be added to the repository. A big reason to choose this option is if this was a draft assignment. So imagine this is a first draft assignment, and then later you're going to create an assignment for their final draft. If you have their first drafts added to the repository, that means their final drafts will check against their first drafts, and those scores will be quite high. So a big reason why you might want to make sure you uncheck index all submissions is if this is a draft assignment. You can always click this link here, which will take you to our Turnitin guides, which will walk you through and explain these options here again for you. Our next option is show reports to students immediately after the assignment is graded, after the due date, or never. I'm going to go ahead and choose immediately. These next two options, these are Canvas options. Do you want to make it a group assignment? Do you want to allow for peer review? This is completely up to you and is Canvas driven. And then once you get down to the bottom here, you can obviously choose your due date, your available date, and your until date. And then you can click save or save and publish. Any questions before I click save and publish?
Hi, Ryan. Yes, real quick, you said it will read any file that has text. Are there any known files that it just will not read at all?
The biggest issue are image files, because they would be able to submit an image file and it would appear to you as though it has text, but it wouldn't actually have text. It would be an image of text. Those are the files that we worry about the most. But what I can do in my follow-up emails, I can include a list of accepted file types for you.
That'd be
so that
perfect.
you can see those.
Thank you.
No problem.
Does that include PDFs as an image file?
If it's an image, some PDF files contain text. Some of the older PDF files are image. So it just depends on which one that they load.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
This is Steve James. If you have a number of students submitting a paper, let's say 40 or 50 in a class, will this check their papers against the papers in their class if you've done the submission check and added it to the database, or do you have to run them a couple of times?
So that's a great question. So you're talking about collusion before the, in that same assignment.
Yes.
Yes, so that's a great question. Actually, what it will do is it will rerun those papers after the due date. So you may see some scores change. Before the due date is passed, you're right. They're not checking against each other because they're not added to the database. But once the due date passes, then there will be a collusion check.
And that's an automatic thing that it does?
Yes.
Great.
I think we might have something in the chat. It just says OCR. I apologize. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe that might be to someone else. I'm not sure. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to go ahead and click save and publish. And here is my assignment. I'm going to jump over to an assignment that I created a bit ago and I've already submitted to. So here's my assignment that I had created previously. I'm going to go ahead and open that up. Oh, I think we might have something in the chat. Hold on. Object character recognition for image files. To be honest with you, I don't know that off the top of my head. If it's an image, it's not going to check it. If there is text in there to check against, then it will. But I'm not sure about object character recognition. But I can look into that. One second here. If everybody could also just make sure, I'm going to click mute all. I think someone had their microphone on. I apologize. And 1 second while I write that down, because I want to look into that. Anybody else have any questions while I'm writing? Okay. Okay. So here I am, like I said, I've jumped into my assignment that I created before. You can see I have 0 out of 1 submissions graded. So to access my student's report, I just need to click on Speed Grader. And I can still see my student's entire report. I can still mark it up just like I usually would in Speed Grader. I can see my student's score here. And if I have my students, if my student is resubmitted, I can see each submission separately. So this student submitted at August 17th, then they resubmitted to the assignment on the 19th. I can toggle between these two submissions and see those different scores and still access those 2 different reports. I think we had something in chat. 1 second. How about mathematical tables and graphs? Images, it's not going to be able to check If it's text, it will be able to, so mathematical formulas, tables and graphs, no, not so much, but formulas in Excel sheets, that type of thing, it should be able to check. Okay, so once you jumped into SpeedGrader, you can see your student submission. All you have to do is click on this score here to open up the Similarity report. And here is our student's paper. I can zoom in and out with these buttons down here in the bottom left. I have a really helpful little question mark here that will take me directly to our guides. If we have any questions about any of the options down the road, remember you can jump to our guides with screenshots and step-by-step instructions. When you open this up for the first time, you will have this quick tour where it will walk you through some of these items and explain some of these items to you. You can always turn this off. You can always start it again by hitting that question mark and hitting View Tour. And then you also have the ability to display the paper ID. If you or your student has to create a tech support case about a certain submission, please include this paper ID. We have hundreds of thousands of millions of papers in our various repositories. So having this ID really helps to speed up the process of finding those papers. So you and your students can find this ID and send those on if you ever have any tech support issues. Like I mentioned, we can see our student's paper, and you'll notice that it is highlighted in number. Those highlights and numbering go with our matches that we have over here. So we have sources overview, and we have all sources. Under sources overview, you're going to see your largest matches and the most relevant matches. To dig into one of the matches, all you have to do is actually click on the match itself. It will move through the paper and match you up with that. So here we have our blue number 1 here. We can actually see our students match within the context of this article itself. If we want to view the full text of the article, we can click this button and we'd be able to scroll through the entire article. If we want to exclude this source, we can exclude this source that'll drop off our list and it'll bring up the next largest, most relevant source. If you want to jump straight to the source itself, you can click on this link and it will take you straight to that article. Now remember, when you click on these links, it's taking you out of Turnitin. So we can't guarantee what you're going to see on the other end, but you can definitely visit any of those articles or publications that your students have matched with. And to close this out, I just need to click it again, and that'll drop me to my next matches here. If you want to see every single source, you can toggle to the All Sources view, and it will give you one giant list of every single match, whether it is from the internet or Crossref or to various publications. It will show you every single match, also student submitted work as well, all the way down to the 1% and even less than 1%. So if you want to, you can dig into even these smaller matches whenever you want to see where they have also matched. So within our larger matches from our source overview, even within these larger matches, you're going to find smaller sub-matches where maybe a student or an internet source used just this one sentence within our largest match inside their article. So you'll see your largest matches and you'll see smaller matches from within your larger matches. 1 second here, I think we've got something in the chat. Can students see these reports as well? Great question. Absolutely they can. Their report is almost exactly the same as yours. The biggest difference is they don't have this flags panel. And I'm going to show you what that is here in a little bit. Otherwise, it looks and acts exactly the same as yours. I think we might have one more thing in the chat here. In my experience, are catches more likely to be from internet sources or from other submissions? So while you build out your institutional repository, you're going to find mostly internet matches. But as you build out your institutional repository, you'll start seeing a lot more submitted works from all those students. Now, one thing I also want to mention here, when you find these matches, just remember, Turnitin.
Question, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So your company is taking over from VeriCite. Was there a repository that was created for American River College within VeriCite that will be shared with Turnitin?
That's correct. We are working on migrating all the VeriCite submissions into your repository.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. I think we had something in the chat. Oh, yes, okay. Someone just saying thank you. So what I was saying is keep in mind, Turnitin is not going to tell you that anything is actually plagiarized. All we are showing you are matches from our various databases. It's up to the instructor to actually decide whether or not plagiarism has taken place. So you'll end up finding a lot of matches, especially quotes. But if those quotes are cited correctly, then plagiarism probably hasn't taken place. We're just trying to bring things to your attention that you might want to take a closer look at. Now, I do get a lot of questions from time to time about what is a good overall similarity score. This is very subjective. As you can imagine, a research paper is going to have a much higher score than that of maybe a creative writing assignment. So to say that there's a good score no matter what, it doesn't really apply. I think you'll have to take a close look at the type of paper you're asking for, your instructions as far as how many quotes you expect or how many citations you expect, and then kind of go off your best students' papers to decide what's an acceptable percentage to you. I can say that I've worked with some schools, online schools, that kind of come up with a 30% or less, but it is really going to be up to you about what is a good score. I think I got something here in the chat, 1 second. In the past, when we had Turnitin, we could request reports from other institutions. Will we be able to do that, or are we limited only to our institutional repository? At this time, it's going to be checking against your institutional repository. It is not connected to the global repository as of now, but it also means that other schools will not be checking against your repository. Can you summarize what exactly the percentage represents? How much of the paper comes from that source? So great question. These percentages are based on word count. So this number one, blue number one here represents 18% of my total word count in my paper. When you have institutional matches, do you need permission from the faculty of the class where the submitted paper matches? That is completely up to your Turnitin admins to decide. There are a couple of options there, but that's something for them to decide. For programming assignments, will it do a text-based comparison, or is there an option for checking the logical flow of a program? There is not a way to check the logical flow of a program. It is simply going to show you matches. If they were to submit in a Word file or an Excel sheet, it's going to check that text, and it will show matches that it finds there. But it is not designed for programming assignments, per se. But if, depending on the file format that they're submitted in, Turnitin might be able to check those for you, but it will not help you grade. It will just check this for matching. For Los Rios, does it check per college or for the district as a whole? This is a district-wide adoption in our system. Okay, so I apologize. That was a lot of questions. I'm just trying to remember where I left off. Oh, okay. So next, what I wanted to show you here is this little gear. So if we click on this gear here, this is where we can choose more exclusions. You remember when we created the assignment, we could choose to exclude the bibliography or quotes. So if you wanted to exclude bibliography or quotes, you can still do that. I could check bibliography and you can see my score just dropped from 66% down to 59% because it's no longer checking any content that follows the word bibliography or references or works cited. So as you go through and you check these boxes, you'll notice your similarity score decreasing. And you can exclude the bibliography, you can exclude quotes, you can exclude citations, you can exclude small matches. If I wanted to come in and say, I don't want to see any matches that are 20 words or less, I can do that. I can also choose to exclude, maybe I don't want to see any internet matches. I would just like to see publications, cross-ref, posted content, and submitted works. I can exclude these as well, just to bring those larger lists down. And when you're done, you can click done and it will stick for you, or you can just uncheck them or do quick checks just like this here, where I can check and bring down my score depending on my exclusions. I got a couple of questions here in chat, 1 second. Will there be an option for us to submit directly to Turnitin.com, or will we be able to only be able to use it as part of a Canvas assignment? Ideally, what we'd love is for everybody to use this through Canvas. I understand that you might have a one-off submission that you just want to check for similarity. We do suggest that you possibly create, maybe you can create a dummy assignment and just check papers that you need to. It is easier and simpler if everything is done inside Canvas. Having said that, there are Turnitin accounts available, but you'll need to talk to your Turnitin admin at your school to find out about the possibility of getting access to Turnitin.com. With these exclusions, are they per student or for all submissions for that assignment? So good question. If you choose these options, when we created the assignment, it will affect all students. When you're inside a student's paper, these exclusions only affect that student's paper you're looking at. With these, that leads to another question. Can we submit on behalf of a student? I believe you can, but that is a Canvas option, I believe. We could take a look at that. But I believe you should be able to, but I don't want to say 100%. I apologize. Not allowed in Canvas. Okay, so there you go. So I can flip over to my student view and I can submit as that student I'm masquerading as, but apparently you can't submit for that student. Okay, so those are the exclusions. Again, you can find those by clicking on this gear here. And remember, it's only going to affect this student's paper, not every student. You also have a really wonderful brand new panel we call our flags panel. And if we click on that, it's actually going to show you instances where the students have deliberately tried to trick the algorithm. And what I mean by that, for instance, if we click on replaced characters, these are attempts to throw off the similarity detection. So in this case, my student went in and changed out the English letter E for Cyrillic letter E's, thinking that maybe Turnitin is a program in such that if the match isn't 100%, then there's no match at all. Now, don't worry, that's not how the algorithm works. Even if they were to replace certain words, just like in this match here, we're still going to find these matches and show them to you. In this case, this student, grabbed a thesaurus and changed some things around, but we're still showing you that match. We're also going to show you instances where that student has tried to replace characters, hoping that that would throw off the detection as well. In addition to the replaced characters, you also have hidden text. So if I was to click on hidden text, for example, I can see that I have 5 suspect characters on page 1. So in this case, I have some commas here that this student decided to make white. Again, thinking if I make them white, my instructor won't see them, but maybe it throws off the algorithm. In this case, this student made these quotation marks white, thinking, okay, I know my instructor told me that she's going to exclude all quotations. So if I just make these quotations white, the system won't check them, but they'll still be there, right? So these are just some instances where students are trying to deliberately throw off the algorithm, but we're going to bring those to your attention when we find them. And you can find this information in this flags panel here, right above the overall similarity. If we want to get back to our similarity, I just need to check the box for overall similarity, and it brings us back to that. Now, remember, your student's view is exactly the same as yours. They just don't have the flags panel. The last thing I'll show you down here in the bottom left is this little printer icon. So if I click on that printer icon, it will actually give me a nice document here that has my student submission information, their overall score, those largest matches, any exclusions I may have chosen, and then actually it will give us our students' paper with those highlighted matches and numbered for us. So a good document if students want to print this up and bring it to a writing lab or bring it to a tutor or to office hours, that type of thing. They can obviously print it up if they want to. If they click the print, it will bring them to their print manager where they could also save it as a PDF if they want to. And let me move that out of the way. If I click cancel, it'll bring us back to our similarity screen. I think I might have a question here, 1 second. Can Turnitin be applied to discussions? Great question, unfortunately, no. It only works through the assignment settings. It doesn't work through discussions. It won't work through quizzes either. But that is something we definitely get feedback from, and we are trying to do It mostly comes down to working with Canvas to make that available. In other LMSs that is available, it's not in Canvas, but it is something we are working towards. So I apologize, it is not ready to be used in discussions. So that is our similarity report. If you've got any questions about that, let me know. I can always come back and open it up and get us back in there. But at this time, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna close down our report. I'm gonna close down SpeedGrader. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and flip over to the student side, and we're gonna walk through what it looks like for the student. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip back into the student, and I'm gonna go to my assignments, and I'm gonna submit to that assignment we just created here. Hold on one sec, I think we have a chat question. If discussion is graded, it's an assignment, wouldn't that allow using Turnitin? You can use Turnitin if you followed those instructions of creating the assignment by clicking Add Assignment and using Online for submission type. I'm not sure if it's graded, it's an assignment. I mean, I think I understand what you mean by that, but the only process to make that a Turnitin assignment are those steps we walk through. If when you're creating your discussion, you're not walking through those steps and you're not adding Turnitin under plagiarism review, it's not gonna check it through Turnitin's repositories. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and open up this assignment. I'm in as a student now. All I have to do as a student is click Submit Assignment. And I can upload a file or a text because my instructor allowed either of those. So all I have, oh, and Google Drive as well. All I have to do is choose my file. I'm gonna find my paper, click Open. I can add another file, I can add comments if I want. I need to agree to the end user license agreement, and then I'm gonna click Submit. Lets me know I've submitted successfully. If my instructor's allowed resubmissions, I can resubmit. The first time they submit, they're also gonna have to check an additional end user license agreement, but they're only gonna have to do that once. But now for the student to be able to access their submitted paper and their report, they need to go to Submission Details. If they click on Submission Details, here is their paper. Here is a flag. Now this flag, this color of this flag depends on the severity of their score. So for instance here, if it's a blue flag, there's no matching text. If it's a green flag, it's one word to 24% matching, yellow 25 to 49, orange 50 to 74, red 75 to 100%. For that student to be able to open up that similarity report, all they have to do is click on that flag and it's gonna open up for them. And they can see their overall similarity score. They can dig into them. They can move between the sources overview and the all sources. They can choose those exclusions if they'd like to see what their paper score would be with those exclusions. They can do everything we just walked through. You'll just notice they don't have that flags panel. Otherwise, it offers the same help as yours does. So again, that's how easy it is for a student to submit. They also can access these flags if they go to their grades. They can see these flags in there as well. And if they click on these flags, they'll be able to open up their similarity report from within the grades as well. Now, it also works the same for the instructor. So if I leave the student view.
Sorry, quick. Just to go back very quick, they submit it, they get the message that the assignment was submitted, and then they click on, did you say submission details?
Correct. Would you like me to jump back over there really quick?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
No, I don't mind at all. 1 second here. Sorry, I'm going a little quick. Let me go in here to Turnitin test assignment 1. Submission details, you're exactly right. So if they click on submission details, this is where they can access that flag. They can also access it from within the grades themselves. The same flag will take them to the same report. Okay, so I'll leave this again. We can always jump back. So if you think, like I mentioned before, if you've got any questions about anything we've covered, I'm happy to go back and cover those. Oh, you know what? I just took us out of what I wanted to show. You as the instructor can access those flags from within your grades as well. Now for you, it's not as simple as just clicking on the flag and opening up the report. For instructors, you'll have to click on that, click on this little arrow, and then you'll have to jump into SpeedGrader and then access the report from within there. So you can access the report, or you can say you can access SpeedGrader from within the assignment itself or from within the gradebook. And like I mentioned before, I believe I mentioned this before, I apologize if I didn't, but within SpeedGrader itself, if your student has submitted multiple times to that one assignment, you can toggle between those submissions and see those different reports. Now, I submitted the same paper, so my report's the same score. But if they were revamping a draft over and over and resubmitting, you'd be able to see those different scores and open up those different similarity reports.
Ryan?
Yes.
A quick question on that. So let's say everything was being saved to the repository. They submit first. They realize I didn't put my name on my paper. They submit again, and you said at the end, after the due date, all the papers will be compared to each other. So will you no longer be able to see the original score on the first submission? Because it will then be compared to the second submission.
Yeah, because that original score will change if they have used same information or if they match those students.
So you have to go into your sources and say, don't count this source.
Yes, you could go in and turn off that source.
Okay.
A lot of the times, unless there's really collusion, for instance, with a quote, let's imagine it's a Shakespeare quote, and student A uses the same quote as student B, but there's still going to be matches to the internet because that quote is everywhere. So their score may not change, even though after the due date, they'll match each other now. But that score may not change because it already matched the internet somewhere else. Does that make sense?
Yes, but that raises another question, if you don't mind. If you've supplied something like a form to students where you have questions already populated, so there's a certain amount of matching that's going to happen, will Similarity realize that, or will they all match?
So that's a great question. It will all match. We are working on the ability to be able to add material that is overlooked because of that request, when we've had that request many times. Right now, the best workaround, if you have to have them all submit that same information, is to possibly put quotes around them and or make those quotes white, however you want to do it, and then exclude quotes. Then it won't affect that information.
Thank you.
Sure. Great question. Well, that pretty much brings us to everything that I wanted to cover with you today. I hope it wasn't too painful. Hopefully it seemed easy, but I'm happy to stay on with everybody and answer any questions. The last thing I might ask before you jump off, I have this training survey. If you wouldn't mind, it only takes a couple of minutes, maybe not even that. You don't even have to answer everything, but if you wouldn't mind taking a quick second to fill that out, I'd really appreciate it. Again, even if you just want to put in your name, that's fine, but anytime that'd be fine. But I'm happy to stay on as long as anybody would like, and I will answer as many questions as I can, and if I can't answer them, I will find those answers for you. But otherwise, for everyone else who has to jump off and run, thank you very much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you found this helpful.
Ryan, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
What is included in the internet repository? Is there a specific search engine you use?
We have our own proprietary crawler, and inside our internet, we have over 60 billion websites archived going back 8 years.
And that continues to crawl every day and add more?
Constantly, every day. Yes, exactly. Obviously, we don't have access to, back end. If we don't have a password for that site, we can't check material back there, but everything public facing, we're crawling.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think there were some in the chat. Most of my plagiarism cases come from online essay exams. Is there a way to create a dummy assignment to spot check particular essays? Boy, let me think about that. I guess online essay exams. So short answer essay type questions in your exams. Is there a way to create a dummy assignment to spot check? So unfortunately, unless you copy and paste answers into a document and submit it to Turnitin, it's not going to be able to check your exams unless you actually submit those documents. Yeah, so a dummy assignment where you were to copy and paste those essay answers into a dummy assignment and then submit it to, or a dummy paper and submit it to a dummy assignment, you would then be able to go in and see any of those matches. I think I'm understanding that correctly. I apologize if I'm not. Just curious, I see some differences between Similarity and Verisight, but from your view, what is the most significant improvement? You know, I have to apologize here because I know although Turnitin purchased Verisight, we don't use it. I haven't been trained on it. I really don't know much about it. So I apologize. I just can't answer that question. Sorry.
Ryan, I've got a question.
Sure.
So I'm thinking a lot about the one-off student submissions where maybe I don't use Turnitin but I get a submission that feels suspicious to me and I want to check it. And so let's say like at the very minimum, I could use the test student user inside Canvas, get a report and do all that stuff. The question I have is, assuming that I choose to count that assignment as part of the repository, how will the author of that assignment, the student who submitted it, how will the author be identified if I'm using a test student user, because the test student is ephemeral within Canvas?
Right. In that case, they wouldn't be.
Okay.
That you're exactly right. It would not. You would not be able to find that distinguishable information from you submitting masquerading as a student. I'm saying if another instructor found that match, it would just be a student from Los Rios, but it wouldn't have any more information than that.
And then can I ask a follow-up, because this triggered a question I think maybe was in the chat earlier, and that is, if I remember from using Turnitin before that if and I was on both ends of this conversation once, if a student in my class submits a paper that was caught against a submission to another class, there was an email exchange that was moderated by Turnitin between me and the other instructor, so that I could, but the student wasn't named, in other words, that the other instructor's student wasn't named. It may have been the same student. The other instructor's student wasn't named, and there was an email exchange that was facilitated between me and the other instructor so that we could compare, oh, this was my assignment prompt. Oh yeah, that's what I did. This is right. So if a paper is caught against another submission, how is communication between the facilitator, the instructors rather, facilitated, or is it?
Are you talking about at separate institutions or within the Los Rios district?
I think just within Los Rios. That was my experience before. Was in the district.
Yeah, so that's an admin function of what is visible to you.
Okay.
How much information about that other student would be visible to you, but that's something that your admin would choose.
Okay. So there's a way that we have as a client, those are admin settings that we have for how.
Those are admin settings, and it comes down a lot to certain schools' interpretations of FERPA, right? And what is visible and what's allowed. So we leave those up to admin settings that they can choose to turn on or off.
I'm glad we have some admins on the call here. So Rawan, Pamela, maybe others. You just heard a question that was asked by one of your users.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So when a student submits more than once, is it possible to exclude the previous submission to change the report numbers?
If you exclude the submission, even if you were to delete that student's submission, but their paper was added to the repository, it would still live in the repository. Even if you deleted it as a submission inside your Canvas, because it generated a ID for that paper, it would live on in that database. Now you can request that paper be taken out of our database, but if you just delete it from Canvas, it doesn't take it out of our database.
Okay, but I think what I'm asking is you can exclude bibliographies and things like that. Right. Can you go in and say, oh, I don't want to include this first draft, I only want to look at the second draft?
So if you were in in SpeedGrader, and I apologize if I'm not understanding this. So if I didn't want it, let's say that this was the first draft and here was our second draft, I could open up the second draft and only look at that one. Or I could toggle back to that previous submission and it would let me know this is not the most recent submission, but I could open up that older report as well.
So, but you can't exclude that previous submission.
Exclude it, delete it?
No, exclude it. So that, you know, like you can say, oh, I want to exclude anything that is in quotation marks. Can we choose to exclude a submission and not have it count on the second submission? We were able to do that with
I
VeriCite.
think I understand what you're saying. So when they resubmit, it's not going to check against its previous submission.
Oh, it's not.
No, you're not. Yeah, I apologize for that confusion.
Okay.
No, it's not going to.
Okay.
It's not going to keep matching up each single one.
Okay, thank you.
You don't have to worry about that. I apologize.
Thank you.
There's a question, can you exclude a single source in a report? You can. So if we open up that report, I can include or open up this here and I can click exclude source. And it will drop that source off for me. And it'll let me know I have an exclusion. If I want, I can bring that back, but I can exclude a single source if I want to.
While you're on this view, is there a place where you can export the report?
So what you would do is click the printer icon in the bottom left, click print, and instead of your destination of your printer, you'd save it as a PDF or to Google Drive or wherever you'd like.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you again, everybody. I really appreciate it. Like I mentioned, I'll be following up with everyone with this recording, as well as a couple of helpful links. But just remember, inside the report, you can always get to our guides through this help here. But otherwise, thank you, everybody, for your time today. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.